Have you ever had one of those moments, where the world just feels off? Almost like a record skipping? Just for a split second? Well, welcome back. This is the third installment of our deep dive into the mycelium matrix, and today we are talking about the glitches.
It's a question you might even be afraid to ask out loud. Is reality itself starting to fray at the edges? Because more and more people are reporting these strange little anomalies, moments where the smooth, continuous movie of everyday life seems to just stutter. You've probably felt this one. Time dilation, where a single minute stretches out and feels like an hour. Or the opposite, where a whole day just vanishes in what feels like a blur. The clock on the wall keeps ticking along, sure, but your internal sense of time, it's gone completely rogue.
And then there's that old classic déjà vu. But I'm not talking about a vague feeling of familiarity. I mean that intense, almost electric sensation that you have lived this exact moment before. It's an unshakable certainty that you're replaying a scene from your life beat for beat. This one is maybe the weirdest of all. Some people report seeing these intricate geometric patterns just overlaid on top of their normal vision, almost like a secret hidden layer of reality is bleeding through for just a moment. So what is going on here?
All right, let's get right into it. These experiences, the ones we usually just brush off as tricks of the mind, what if we frame them as something else entirely? What if they're potential cracks in this simulation? To even begin to understand the glitch, we first have to understand the program that's running things. And guess what? That program is running inside your own head. Here's the thing. Your brain works around the clock, tirelessly, to create a stable, predictable world for you. And the truth is, most of the time, you're not actually seeing reality as it is. No, you're seeing a heavily filtered, heavily edited version, all conveniently presented to you by your own internal autopilot.
In neuroscience, this system has a name. It's called the default mode network, or DMN for short. The best way to think about it is as your brain's prediction engine. Its entire job is to keep a stable, continuous story running about who you are and what the world is like, all based on your past. It's that little narrator in your head, the voice that's always telling you your life story.
So how does this autopilot actually build your reality? Well, you can kind of think of it like a piece of software running a three-step process. First, it deletes a massive amount of raw sensory data that it decides isn't important. Next, it connects the dots, linking cause and effect to create nice, simple stories that make sense of what's left. And finally, it takes fluid, messy processes and turns them into solid, easy-to-grasp concepts, what you could call mental objects. And that right there is your reality-building software humming away in the background.
Now, this whole idea of an internal autopilot leads us to a pretty provocative question that's been floating around online. Are some people NPCs, non-player characters? The term describes people who seem to be operating on a script, just repeating talking points, running the same behavioral loops over and over, with what looks like, well, no independent thought.
Now, while the fringe view might get into ideas about mind-controlled zombies or some external force pulling the strings, neuroscience gives us a much more grounded explanation. This NPC-like behavior? It isn't some external force, it's an internal one. It's the autopilot effect of a super-dominant default mode network, just running its old, ingrained social conditioning and programming on a constant loop. It's not a zombie, it's a brain running on old code. So, if our brain is running this reality filtering program 24/7, is there a way to turn it off? Even for a little while? Is there a way to peek behind the curtain? Well, it turns out the key isn't in some futuristic technology. It's in an ancient, biological network that shares our deepest, most primal history.
The incredible mycologist Paul Stamets said it best. We are descendants of fungi. And that's not just some poetic statement, it's a deep biological truth, and it's literally written into our DNA. 650 million. That is how many years ago the animal kingdom and the fungal kingdom diverged from a common ancestor. We share an incredible amount. We both inhale oxygen and exhale CO2. We can even get sick from the same pathogens. We are, in a very, very real way, ancient relatives.
And this is where it gets really interesting. A specific compound found in certain types of mushrooms, psilocybin, has a truly remarkable effect on the human brain. Clinical studies have shown pretty definitively that it dramatically quiets down activity in the default mode network. In other words, it disables the autopilot. It tells that narrator in your head to just take a break. Okay, so what happens when the prediction engine goes offline? What does your brain actually perceive when it's not constantly deleting, simplifying, and packaging reality for your convenience? Well, you start to see the world without the filters.
This idea, which sounds like it's pulled straight from quantum physics, really captures the feeling. That neat, tidy world of separate things and straight-line time that your DMN works so hard to build, it starts to dissolve. And for the first time, you might just get a glimpse of the raw data stream underneath it all.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Those glitches we were talking about, they're not bugs in the simulation, they're features of a less filtered reality. That feeling of time dilation, that's what it feels like when your brain stops trying to predict the next moment and just fully experiences the now. Those geometric patterns, you might literally be seeing the raw organizational patterns of your own visual cortex at work. And that profound sense of oneness with everything, that's what happens when the DMN's strict boundary between you and the world just melts away.
Now, understanding this whole mechanism has some absolutely profound implications for us. It suggests that our experience of reality isn't set in stone. In fact, it might just be programmable.
Here's the big takeaway. The reality you experience is literally rendered by your expectations, and those expectations are the code running in your DMN. Your autopilot is just executing the programming of your past. But if you can quiet that network, you can actually step outside of the program. You can look at your own ingrained patterns, your own NPC loops, and you can choose to rewrite them. This means that true free will might not just be about making a choice. It's about having the ability to change the very code that dictates your choices to begin with.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? If the reality you perceive is a product of your own internal code, and you find a key that lets you access and even alter that code, what kind of reality are you going to render? What kind of world will you choose to create for yourself?
So, the next time you experience one of those glitches, a moment where reality feels a little strange, a little pliable, just consider this. Maybe the world isn't breaking down at all. Maybe, just maybe, your old way of seeing it is. Reality doesn't break. Your old code does. And that's what makes way for something new.